The way female athletes are portrayed in the media has always really bothered me. Images like this are not right, and are things that female athletes should not have to see in the media, especially young female athletes. For my project, I decided to walk around campus for a couple days and interview female athletes that I ran into and ask them 4 different questions, just sort of on the spot to get their real, true, raw answers. I interviewed a series of just female athletes, but also women that are active feminists and I know support female athletes a lot. And I also asked some professors that were female athletes in college as well as coaches of female teams. What is the first word that comes to mind when you think of a female athlete?
Brave.
Bold.
Tough-minded.
Motivated.
Resilient.
Graceful.
Fierce.
Competitive.
Confident.
Fortitude.
Integrity.
Driven.
Independent.
Capable. Powerful.
Influential.
Special.
Mentally tough.
Leadership.
Versatile.
Determined.
Unique. Inspiring.
Tough.
A go-getter.
Hardworking. Empowered. Passionate. Stamina.
Strong.
Can you think of an article or story you've read or seen when a female athlete was portrayed in any way other than as just an athlete?
I remember reading an article that depicted a woman swimmer that was titled Linebacker's Wife Wins Gold or something like that. Just not necessary.
I watched a video on Ronda Rousey, and part of it was a documentary that she was speaking in about herself, and she was told growing up that she was too loud, she was vulgar, but in her quote she says, "I'm not a do-nothing bitch." And that to me was awesome, because as women we're taught to be quiet, to like make ourselves smaller, but she does not care about that. She wants to be the best fighter in the world, and however she wants to act, she's going to act that way.
I can think of general situations. A lot of the times in the Olympics, especially with volleyball and in the beach volleyball, women after they win are usually questioned, or comments are made about their bodies and how in shape they are, how they look, because of their uniform that they have to wear.
So in the 2016 Summer Olympics, there was a swimmer, a European swimmer that won gold, and many of the announcers attributed it to her husband, who happened to be her coach as well. So that's just like frustrating, because normally they won't attribute a gold to a coach as much as they will to an athlete, but in this case it was attributed to him more so because he was her husband in that case.
And most of the times when I see articles, I see like the wife of such and such, not who they are for what they're mainly recognized for in their successes.
I think of a lot of time, especially in track and field and sports like that, that sometimes like your body is looked at over your actual abilities. So like if you're really well built or like bigger, you're expected to be a thrower. If you're like really skinny or distance runner, that's not necessarily true. I think it's a different standard for girls than it is for guys.
I think when there are strong female athletes portrayed in the media, it seems like such a shock to everyone, like, wow, she's so good, she's so strong, and she's a female. I think that it doesn't always need to be an anomaly.
After the U.S. Women's Soccer Final for the World Cup, which was the most watched soccer game in American history, one of the commentators said, "Oh, it was just because it was on prime time. No one had anything else to watch. It wasn't because they were good or anything."
I read an article written by Jamie Schultz about Serena Williams and the cat suit that she wore in the 2002 U.S. Open, and how it was deemed inappropriate due to her race and gender.
Misty Copeland. She is a professional ballerina, and in articles they focus on her race and social status rather than her athleticism. Another example is during the Olympics when media covers the female gymnasts. They focus on their skills in comparison to the male gymnasts and how it's impressive that they're young females performing these skills rather than just athletes performing.
I wouldn't say it's specifically an article, but more so when you see pictures side by side of, let's say, Kim Mulkey, she's perceived as yelling at her team, while Gino Auriemma will be perceived as coaching to his team.
I think a lot of the time, their accomplishments aren't portrayed in the media, but their body image is portrayed. And I think that constantly female athletes have to live up to an impossible standard that they shouldn't have to.
So whenever Caster Semenya won the 800-meter run at the Olympics this summer, there were some people that questioned whether or not she should be able to compete as a female and whether she had the right to win that gold medal.
A lot of times when commentators are announcing about volleyball, they don't know enough about the sport or don't care enough to actually use the right terminology.
In a past World Cup, Brandy Chastain scored the winning goal to win the World Cup, and she took off her shirt and the media went wild about how wrong it was for her to be in a sports bra, and she got offered so much money for that sports bra, which is absolutely ridiculous because males take their shirt off when just scoring a normal goal, even if they're winning 7-0, and no one says anything about that.
So just about an hour ago, I read an article in the Sentinel, which is the Cumberland Valley newspaper, and it talked about the Raider men at Dickinson women's basketball. So they totally misrepresented us completely. We're not the Raider men, we're actually the Red Devils, and it was all about our game against Harrisburg, or against Gettysburg, but it kept talking about the Raider men in it.
How do you think the way that female athletes are portrayed in the media affects your life as a female athlete?
How it affects my life as a female athlete? I think it discredits like the hard work that I put in. That like my achievements won't be recognized as something that I put in, or rather like they would be like attributed to like who I'd be dating or like how like else I got there. So
at the beginning of high school, a lot of people have thought I was gay because I play basketball, and just that general stereotype of black basketball players and that they're gay. So I just deal with that type of judgment.
So when I was a freshman in college, I did track in college, and I'd never really lifted weights a lot, and we used to have to lift all the time because I was a thrower. And when I came home for a break after, I guess it was after the probably spring break or something, I was going to get all of my summer dresses and summer clothes and stuff from home, and I couldn't fit into any of them, and I was like crying and telling my mom that I wasn't pretty and everything, and she was like, it's fine. And I just remember thinking that people were gonna not think that I was feminine because I was strong and, had muscles.
I think that since a lot of the time female athletes' achievements are overlooked by how they look and things that are other than what they've achieved, you have to work a lot harder to be recognized for an athletic achievement.
I know how much work goes into being an athlete, especially being a female athlete. Things don't come easy to us. And every effort that we put in on the court, in the weight room, we have to double it with promoting ourselves and attitude and gaining support, which isn't just guaranteed for us. So when I see articles and TV, things on TV, not promoting women for what they're actually doing, but rather their body image or things that have nothing to do with their sport, when you discuss women in that light, that disheartens me.
Specifically for dance, it's impacted me as a female athlete because for dance there's a lot of focus on body image and the woman in terms of her family life and appearance, and so as a dancer we focus on that rather than improving our actual skills.
To me, because I feel like we have to work harder to gain recognition.
As a tennis player, it's really important, I guess, that we wear skirts. And I really honestly personally hate wearing skirts. We always have this debate with my teammates when we're picking new uniforms. Because I'm always like pro shorts. Because I feel like too much of like a girl in this, and that, makes me feel like I'm not as much of an athlete. And it makes me feel like I'm not as, competitive or as determined or strong or anything like as like the male athletes. So I really hate wearing skirts.
So the way
female athletes have been or not been represented in media has definitely affected me as a coach and as an athlete. I think I am so ho-hum about it, which is a direct effect of the lack of coverage of women in sports. It's kind of been a norm now because I've always grown up this way. When I was an athlete, we didn't have social media like we do now, and so we were just used to not having coverage at all. I think on the flip side of that, when we are covered, it's soft and it's about stories and it's not about the actual game or the X's and O's or what we actually know. So we tend to keep like it's a kind of a fun way to play sports. It's just fun. We just play for fun. We don't play because we're good athletes and because we know what we're doing and because we like competition and we like to be physical and things like that. It's more about, I mean, today ESPN has an article about an Ole Miss soccer player. I've never heard anything about Ole Miss soccer before. Or really, I haven't even heard UCLA won the other day, or USC, which one was it?
I don't know.
One of those teams just won exactly, I don't know. One of those teams just won, and the article on ESPNW today is about a girl that had a baby during the Ole Miss season. So, you know, that's the stuff we're hearing, and it's frustrating because there's 456 women's basketball teams in Division III, and you never hear anything really good about it. So it obviously affects you, but you kind of play it off like it's normal, so we don't cry out about it a lot, which is why I love your blog.
I think for track and field and cross country, especially since we wear spandex uniforms, our legs are showing, like they're tight. I think it's definitely more of an incentive to like want to have like a better body, want to lose weight, want to be skinnier. When that's not really the case for guys. Like strong is beautiful, like fast is beautiful. That doesn't necessarily mean that like you're super skinny. And even in the cafeteria at school, like if a female athlete asks for pasta versus like a male athlete asking for pasta, the male will get like 3 times as much, and that does like we can eat just as much. But I think there's just this like kind of stigma around it.
Honestly, it really hasn't affected me. I think the lack of coverage makes it just kind of known. Like as a Division III head coach, we know that our team is not going to receive any attention in the media, unless we're winning the national championship. So it's really just not on my radar.
Negative portrayals of female athletes in the media is kind of disheartening because I think that even though at the school we are given the same equal opportunities because of Title IX as the male athletes, maybe we're still not quite there as gaining that equality in the outlook of female athletes as male athletes.
As a coach, I think that the media portrays us differently because we do work in such a male-predominant workforce. So for us, I feel like it's tougher for us to get our words out and what we think is true, what we think is right, even though we know just as much as some of our male colleagues in the same profession.
The way that females have been depicted in the media affects me because I feel as though I have to prove to people that we are different than what is depicted in the media, because it is so different than how we actually are and how skilled we are and how strong we are and how much better we are than they think we are.
It makes me feel like when I'm talking about sports, it's less important than when a male athlete is talking about sports.
Being a female athlete, I think the way the media affects me is they put more of an emphasis on women having a good body, especially being a swimmer, like trying to stay thin, trying to stay in shape.
As a former college athlete, when I was in college, I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to female athletes in popular media. I think it was really hard to find female athletes and what they were involved in and their accomplishments. I think we've definitely seen growth in that. As a former softball player, getting to watch the College World Series every year, it's televised and it's just a really fun event and it's grown a lot. I think it's helped the sport grow as well. But while that's improved, I still think there's significant differences in how men's sports and women's sports are covered. And so I think that we still have a significant amount of growth to do in how we cover female sports, how we talk about female athletes, and how current female athletes, can look to those that have gone before them and really learn from their experiences. So I think, here at a Division III school and working with athletes, they're always looking to see, how the folks that have gone before them have performed in their sport, and also trying to still be a role model for those that are coming behind.
What needs to be done to change the way female athletes are represented?
I think that people should be educated more on female athletes. I think that they don't get enough of a good rep. I don't think that they're shown for who they are and how resilient they are and how determined and successful they are and how hard they worked. I think that a lot of the time, if you think about Olympians that we hear about Michael Phelps and how hard he works in the pool and practices that he does every single day for God knows how long until the Olympics, but you're not really hearing the stories about women. And it's even harder for women today because think about all the oppression that we've overcome and still having to deal with a negative image in the media. And I think it's so important to change that whole narrative, especially for future female athletes.
So there's definitely a stigma about female athletes in the media and how they're portrayed, whether it be being asked about what they're wearing on the court or on the field, rather than being asked why they did a certain thing, why they did a certain play. And that definitely needs to be changed because male athletes are never asked why they wear something or why they act a certain way when they score or when they do something well on the field or on the court. So I think it needs to start with the questions that they're being asked and with the equality between male and female athletes.
I think that male athletes need to help promote women's athletics as something as important as what they're doing.
I think changing the stigma, changing the culture surrounding female athleticism, I guess opening a dialogue and talking about how maybe women might react in this situation as opposed to just doing it and seeing how it happens.
Female athletes need to be celebrated more for their purely athletic achievements as opposed to their looks.
In order to improve women's coverage of sports, you just need more people covering. You need more people interested in it. The money is not in women's sports, and the money is not in the interest of women's sports, so things like your blog are really great. There is ESPNW, but even they're pigeonholed to what stories they do because they have to have interests. The biggest market in sports is men 18 to 32 or 18 to 35. If they're not interested in women's sports, nobody else is. So we need more women interested in women's sports and actually supporting it that are in that age range, that go to the games, that put it on their social media, that talk about it, and then that also cover it in good ways that they're knowledgeable and actually know what they're doing. So the more people like you that bring attention to it and that have their own blogs about it can be great. And then obviously building that up towards bigger programs like ESPN or any of the Fox Sports or Big Ten or anything like that.
I think that more light has to be brought to the fact that this exists, this dynamic exists where female athletes' achievements they aren't focused on. And we need more reporters and more articles that, aren't saying linebacker's wife wins this or that. It's focusing on who they are as an athlete and their achievements and have no relation to how they look.
I think just the important thing is more equality between female and male athletes. Just when reporting stories or results, just having the different genders being reported the same. It doesn't matter if a really good athlete is someone's wife, that's irrelevant. That doesn't define her success or her accomplishments. What she does. So I think we just need to raise awareness of the fact that we are different and maybe males are faster, maybe they are stronger, but that doesn't mean that females aren't just as athletic and being told if that makes sense.
More young girls should be encouraged to play sports and encouraged to stay in sports.
Rather than compare women to male athletes, I would like to see a transition to a respect and appreciation for them on their own.
More coverage.
I think we have to get more people out to events like games, or just have a general awareness of how much effort and how much time, female athletes do actually put in, because we do put the same amount or more than men do in their athletics, because it is such a toll on us, to get that equality.
For people, spectators, just to have more respect for female athletes.
I would say it's just like treating them just like any other athlete, like any male athlete, instead of treating them for their looks or how much revenue they can bring in just from their body type.
An article that I saw about that from a swim team, a male swim team. I can't remember what country it was around when the Olympics were happening. And they were saying they wanted to be objectified. So, I don't know. You can do a survey and ask men on campus if they would like to be objectified more. But maybe if it was more on both sides, it wouldn't be so. I don't know if people would think about it more. Maybe if men were being objectified too, they'd think about what it's like for a woman to be objectified, and there would be more respectful conversations about things. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong for somebody to want to wear nice clothes and for somebody to think that they're beautiful, but there's ways where you can say that and it can be positive and ways where it's negative.
I think in order to have a better media presence for female athletes, we need to stop comparing female athletes to male athletes, because it's kind of a whole different world, different sports, and there's not as much similarities as you would think. So I think in order to have a better presence, it's important to stop comparing male and female athletes.
I think that there definitely need to be more female broadcasters that understand a female athlete and kind of the way like a female line works.
What can be done in terms of viewing female athletes in like a better portrayal? I think it stems from the fact that females in general aren't viewed as equal to men. So it's impossible for us to be viewed as qualified as men are in like male athletic situations. So I think really what needs to happen first is females need to be regarded as like our own entity, and like males do too.
As a senior captain of our basketball team, I do my very best, I try to make sure every single girl from a senior down to a first year knows how valued they are, in more than just their looks, more than just their athletic performances too. They as a person are very valuable, and they have so much to bring. So I think that every leader on every team should make their teammates feel valuable and push women to see more in themselves, and then that way other people will see more in themselves.
I think we need more women in leadership positions across the board, whether that's youth sports, college sports, professional sports. I think women are qualified to lead in a sporting environment, whether that's coaching or front office, whatever it may be. I think the more females that are visible in those sports, the more opportunities will be available for more women to get involved over the years. I also think it's the responsibility of current female athletes who do have exposure to really kind of increase the influence that women in sport have in the media, in print, online presence, and they get to send the message via their social media accounts and how they want to be perceived as female athletes.
I was saying that clearly, in order to change this reputation of a woman being a female athlete being not equal to a male athlete, I would say that maybe if a strong female athlete emerged, that could break that stereotype. But clearly, we've seen so many female athletes that should their general what they've accomplished should already break that stereotype, but clearly that isn't the way. So how to fix that? I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, I think we just have to keep, I'm not a female athlete, I'm not an athlete, but if it were me, I think we just got to keep proving the point, keep getting stronger, working harder, and doing whatever it takes. And I think in the end, the only way that we can forget the stereotype is if we just don't acknowledge it. not to say to diminish its role, but if we don't see the boundaries that it puts up to us, nobody's going to keep trying to hold them against us.